Hey guys, so as a lot of you know, I've been getting a ton of hate over two different controversial topics, both of which are pretty hard for me to talk about, but I just really want to try my best to clear the air, and so all I ask is that you please bear with me. Just to set the record straight from the beginning, I want to say I am not anti-Semitic, and I am not an anti-vaxxer. So I'm going to talk about both topics, but just one at a time. And I wanted to start off with the anti-Semitic rumor and how that started, just because I think out of every comment that I've gotten, the ones that are calling me and my family Nazis, those are the ones that really just don't sit well with me. I mean, if anything, they're extremely offensive and just super hurtful, not just to me, but to my family. I know a lot of you guys do know, but I know a lot of you guys don't know that I am myself a proud Latina. I was born in Mexico, en Montemorelos, en Nuevo León. Yo sé que muchos de ustedes ya saben que yo soy Latina y que mi primer idioma era español. I know that a lot of people just assume that I'm white because I was not lucky enough to inherit my mom's really beautiful dark skin. But I do have her dark eyes. But I think that it's important too that people know that us Latinas come in all different shades of brown. Okay, so to help give you guys a better understanding of how this Nazi rumor started, I'm gonna have to go back to a time that I honestly really hate to talk about. I hate thinking about it. I ended up going to years of therapy and healing in order to deal with a lot of the traumatizing things that happened back then. So you guys please forgive me if some of this stuff is a little bit hard for me to talk about. A lot of you guys remember Miami Ink. When that show first started, the ratings went up super quick, and the network started getting feedback from the audience saying that the show was lacking female energy. So they wanted to cast a female tattoo artist. So let's see, I was about 22 years old when I first joined Miami Ink and started filming with the show. And I remember that right after I started filming, the ratings went up, and it started to make one of the other cast members feel threatened. I don't think he was threatened only just by me, but I think he was threatened by any type of woman that has an opinion or, you know, has a stand on anything. And that's when the hazing started. Sometimes I would show up to work and the contact screws, which are the little part on a tattoo machine that conducts the electricity that makes it to where your tattoo machine works, those were taken out just so that I wouldn't be able to tattoo that day. The mistreatment on set was pretty unbearable over the time that I was there filming. There were so many times where he said things to me that were so repulsive I could never repeat those things out loud. He sent me a photo of his penis, and to me, I feel like the worst part of all of it was one time when we came out to LA. A couple of us went out on the town. It was him plus two others. And I remember they got too drunk to drive, and so I said, hey, I'll drive, no problem. I wasn't drinking that night. And I remember he sat behind me, behind my car seat, and at one point he reached around and grabbed my breasts. And I remember pulling his hands off of me, and I think the worst part of all of it was that when I said, what the fuck, and turned to the other guys for support, they literally did nothing, and they just acted like nothing happened. Needless to say, none of this type of behavior ever made the air, and eventually I just had enough and I ended up having to quit off camera. So before I left the set for the last time, some of the production crew guys had asked me for some 8x10s, and some for them and some for their families or the kids. And I was more than happy to bring some down, and so I left a stack there for anybody who wanted one to have one. The network obviously didn't want me to go because the ratings had been so high at the time. So they offered me my own spin-off show, obviously in a confidential way. We didn't tell anybody. And they wanted me to film this show where I would, be back home in LA. I would open up my own tattoo shop, hire, my favorite female artists, and it would be called LA Ink. We kept a lid on the entire production, and I remember I started filming the intro to the show, and that's when this other cast member eventually found out that LA Ink was happening. He was so paranoid that LA Ink would replace Miami Ink, which eventually it did, that he thought he could cancel my show by going to the network and showing them this 8x10 with a forged anti-Semitic message on it. I have no idea who actually forged the message, but what I do know is that the man who treated me so terribly on set took this 8x10 and threatened the network and saying that if they don't cancel LA Inc., that he would go to all these different media outlets and release the 8x10 with the forged message on it. The network, of course, could tell that it wasn't my handwriting, and so they decided to continue filming, which obviously made this man more angry, more vindictive, and he ended up following through with his threat and went to the media with this forged 8x10. Man, those were some crazy times. I mean, I was in my early 20s and it was fucking crazy. It was like overnight, I was just falsely branded as an anti-Semite and I had no idea how to handle it or what to do. I remember the network's publicist just told me just to stay quiet and let it go away. And it was really hard to, you know, have people out there in the world believe that something that wasn't true. And eventually I just broke and I went on to MySpace because it was the MySpace days, and I ended up writing a blog and truthfully denying it. But other than that, nobody really knew the truth, and I never really talked about it or told my side of the story, and my voice was never really heard. So yeah, after all these years, this is the first time that I'm actually talking about this publicly, and I honestly have been dreading making this video, but I know that it has to be done. I have to do it. I can't just keep letting other people write this narrative that's so inaccurate. It's so false and so awful. None of this feels good to relive. But I have a son now, and seeing all of these awful comments and the things that people are saying, I can't just sit around and pretend like it's gonna go away. And it sucks that over this last decade, every time this 8x10 comes up, I have to, you know, be reminded of this really awful, traumatizing time. And after all this recent hate, it's just, you know, enough is enough, and this is time for me to finally speak up and set the record straight. There's a reason why I'm choosing not to mention anyone's name, and I'm sure a lot of you will think I'm a coward, but honestly, I don't care. I think the idea of putting myself in the same sentence with this man, it makes me shudder just as much as having to relive any of this stuff that was so traumatizing. I'm definitely not asking my followers to spread any negativity or hate either. I think karma has a beautiful way of dealing with a lot of this stuff, and in all honesty, I just want to move on and I want to move forward, just like I have been trying to the last decade. The last thing I'll say about this topic is that, yes, I probably should have talked about this back when it was happening, but in all honesty, I did not have the support that I have now, and I definitely wasn't the same person that I am now. I mean, I used to resort so much to escapism and self-medicating through drinking and drugs, and as a lot of my fans and followers know, like, I am very happily sober. I'm actually celebrating 11 years of sobriety on July 7th. And so, you know, if that shit were to go down now, it would be a totally different story. So hopefully that explains where that rumor started and just puts it to rest once and for all. So now I want to talk about the uproar that I accidentally caused back when I talked about vaccines when I was pregnant. I'm going to try my best to make this part as short as possible. I know this video is getting pretty long, so I'm sorry for that. I'm not sure how to start this part of the topic other than just by saying that I am not an anti-vaxxer. What I am is a first-time mother. I'm one of those moms that reads everything. I mean, I read everything from ingredients in foods to cleaning supplies to medicines. Basically anything that is going in my baby or on my baby, I research like a complete and total nerd. So back when I was pregnant, somebody asked me on Instagram if we were vaccinating our baby, and after doing a bunch of research and reading the ingredients, naturally I experienced some hesitancy. And you know, you guys know me, I tend to share everything really with you guys. I'm an open book in that sense, and I wear my heart on my sleeve, and probably too much sometimes, more than I should. But if I would have known that I would have let so many people down with that, I would have never ever shared where we were at with it at that time. Since then, we have decided as parents to consult with our pediatrician and just let him educate us and guide us. But unlike before, I've learned my lesson, and I am choosing not to make our decision or any of our baby's health records public, and I just want to thank you guys for respecting that. All right, guys, so before I go, I just want to read a little something that I wrote last night, if that's okay. This is actually to all of you who sent so much hate my way. I'm not mad at you. I actually totally understand where you were coming from. I just don't think that sending hate to anyone is the right way about going about anything. Whether or not you were right, it doesn't mean you should call me names or wish death upon my child. Some of the comments I got were so cruel and hurtful. I hope none of you ever have to go through that. We all experience so much negativity on a daily basis as is, whether it's from someone else or even our own selves. And there really is no reason to add more hate to anyone's plate. We are all human, capable of making mistakes, but we also deserve a little bit of a gentler approach to criticism. If I've learned anything from all my years of animal rights activism, it is that you're more likely to open someone's mind with kindness instead of attacking them. And lastly, to all of those who were gentle in your approach to me on this subject, thank you. The world needs more of you. Love you guys.